Welcome to Section 3, Part 2, where we discover the world of indicators and discuss some of the challenges. A strategy or a policy that only describes a desired future is an empty paper. Since education is considered a good thing, you will not really find politicians or other decision makers that will oppose the idea. Quite the opposite, actually. Many compete for a place in the spotlight, explaining why they or their party is the most education-friendly one. Agreeing on what sounds like a positive future is therefore often easy. I have heard many such declarations over the years. And I admit, at first they made me feel warm and fuzzy inside, because it seemed we have friends in high places. But do we, really? Are the fancy speeches and promises followed up by concrete action? Here is where the picture gets a bit muddled very often, and there are many reasons for this. We will now look at one of them. One of the hard parts of any strategy is to define indicators of success. The very idea of lifelong learning suggests we are never ready, never fully learned. So, what types of indicators are even possible or meaningful? This is a challenge with several dimensions. One is what type of indicator reflects the desired outcome. Let's say we want to improve the education level of a population. If we set an indicator of 15% more adults have completed a higher education degree within 10 years, what does that mean? For the most part, everyone's eyes will be on that percentage. Did we reach it or not? If we do, we can say the policy or strategy was successful. But does that mean we have improved the situation enough? Or does it simply mean we met the agreed level, but there are still plenty of adults with low educational levels in society or in our country? Now, it is evident we need some sort of targets or indicators. Funders require this. They want to know the money is well spent. I understand. So we do our best to agree on numbers. And it is always a compromise. If we set the numbers too high, we will never reach them, and the policy will be condemned as a failure. If we set them too low, our policy will not accomplish very much, I think. The second dimension is trickier. We want to accomplish complex improvements. Education is part of a holistic approach to life. That also includes things which are hard to measure and which are also not necessarily agreed on by all parties. I'm thinking about to live a good life, to find meaning in our existence, to build confidence, creativity, to support joy, independence, yes, happiness. How do you put an indicator on that? I know some will say this is a luxury, something we can discuss once the basic needs are met. I understand that. I do not agree. I think everything is connected. If everyone learns to read and write, but they have no access to work, the reading will not feed them. If everyone has work, but they have no say in how the country should be governed and are under a brutal regime, they will not prosper. If we manage to create a system of wealth for all, but at the cost of a ruined nature, we will not live very long. If our life is nothing but work, we will shrivel. And if we make a good system but maintain the structural injustices that facilitates gender oppression, our system will fail. This is how I see it. You are, of course, free to disagree. Do you think everything is connected? Or do you have another take on this? Press pause in this recording and take some time to reflect on your own views. Then come back here. Ready? Good. The third dimension is political and connected to the second. If we are to be holistic, we need to address inequality, injustice, gender imbalance, poverty, sustainability, and democracy. And we need to find indicators to measure this. An education policy that addresses the education or literacy level but omits to link it to equity, gender, and sustainability is a flawed policy. Yes, it may reach its indicators, but I think it is unlikely to have any deeper impact, or long-term impact for that matter. That makes it political. Because the moment you start including poverty eradication or gender issues, you get differing opinions. In all of these dimensions, we also have the challenge of collecting correct data. Because even if we have a good policy and manage to agree on useful indicators, it is all for nothing unless we can make sure the reporting of indicator progress works, is transparent and correct. In the previous part, I claimed education must be seen as the key to several of the other sustainable development goals. I think those SDGs are also where we must go to when we want to connect adult education to the bigger picture, the wider issues. And I see it as this. Again, this becomes an issue of empowerment. Well, to make this a bit more concrete, here are some examples of indicators. I have taken them from the Incheon Declaration of 2015. Indicators for Sustainable Development Goal 4. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. By 2030, ensure that all boys and girls complete free, equitable and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and effective learning outcomes. By 2030, ensure that all boys and girls have access to quality early childhood development, care and pre-primary education so that they are ready for primary education. By 2030, ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational and tertiary education, including university. By 2030, substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills, for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. By 2030, eliminate gender disparities in education and ensure equal access to all levels of education and vocational training for the vulnerable, including persons with disabilities, indigenous people, and children in vulnerable situations. By 2030, ensure that all youth and a substantial proportion of adults, both men and women, achieve literacy and numeracy. By 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. Build and upgrade education facilities that are child, disability, and gender sensitive and provide safe, non-violent, inclusive, and effective learning environments for all. By 2020, substantially expand globally the number of scholarships available to developing countries, in particular least developed countries, small island developing states, and African countries, for enrollment in higher education, including vocational training and information and communications technology, technical, engineering, and scientific programs in developed countries and other developing countries. By 2030, substantially increase the supply of qualified teachers, including through international cooperation for teacher training in developing countries, especially least developed countries and small island developing states. As if this was not enough, we must also consider the question of quality. A set of indicators that are purely numerical is not likely to guarantee success, at least not in any deeper sense. So it is not only about the final goal, which is the vision, the roadmap, which is the strategy, and the indicators, which are pit stops. It is also about how you arrive at those pit stops. By now, I think you see what a complex thing this all is. While we cannot give you a fully equipped toolbox with all the tools you need to build a very good system, I think we can point out what tools there should be and suggests directions for how to find, build, or use them. If this has felt like a whirlwind of international challenges and abstract thoughts, let's now move in closer to your national context.